glucagon pulses, but unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Going into then, we could talk a little bit about New Trek.
Let's get into it.
As a Kurtzman shill, you love all of it.
I do. I inject it right into my veins.
I mean, not so much. Discovery season 1.
Well, let's not skip over the movies, because the JJ movies.
We could talk about the JJ Abrams movies.
Yeah, because I think that leads
into New Trek.
Actually, I think it does lead into like sort of a lot of the aesthetic choices they made and a lot of the direction they go. And in the book, The Divided Allegiance, the third waves of Star Wars and Star Trek, available on Amazon now. I talk about how I feel like, and I think JJ even said this in like, I think don't
flash it so quick. You're gonna give somebody epilepsy.
Yeah,
it's gonna
give a warning.
All right, beat it 3.
But I think there was some interview, I want to say maybe like Stephen Colbert, maybe Jon Stewart, where JJ Abrams admits he's like, I was more of a Star Wars guy than a Star Trek guy. And that is very evident in I think those first 2 movies, that he was trying to Star Wars up Star Trek, which I think was absolutely the directive from Paramount, because you look at those first movies that we got. I mean, the legendary story is that after the motion picture, which another movie that I think does not get the credit it deserves.
Unfortunately, they were trying to make 2001: A Space Odyssey for Star Trek.
Yeah, look, the introduction of the Enterprise with that Jerry Goldsmith score could have been 2 minutes longer for my money.
Yeah.
But I think that the what they wanted to do, after that $40 million, it was over budget. They brought in Harv Bennett, and the story goes that, I think it was one of those famous executive guys, maybe Katzenberg. I don't know.
Okay.
But one of them was like, he's like, can you make a Star Trek movie? And Harv Bennett was like, sure. And he's like, can you make it for under $40 million? And he's like, I can make 5 of them for that. And that's how those movies, that's why they were profitable. I mean, they made, I think like The Voyage Home is the most profitable Star Trek movie because it was, what it earned versus the budget. And none of these budgets were massive. I mean, part of the reason Nemesis and Insurrection failed, as it were, is because their budgets were maybe higher than a Star Trek, a middle, a 4 or 5, 3, 4 Star Trek movie series should be. And with this one, with JJ's 2009, then Into Darkness, which the Khan thing really sticks with me. Like, no, Benedict Cumberbatch, great actor, should not play a man named Khan Noonien Singh. You know what I mean? Beyond, Star Trek Beyond was my favorite of those 3 because it felt like it was an original story. It kind of had that episode feel, but all of them had these like $200 million budgets. And we Star Trek fans, we are mighty, we are passionate, but we are small in number. If we ever fight the Star Wars guys, they are going to win. They've just got us the numbers. We'll need some good Starfleet tactics to win that battle. But I think that was the problem with those movies, is that Paramount said, make Star Trek Star Wars for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they tried to do. And, I've met people who that was their gateway to Star Trek. And they went back, watched the shows, and they're like, oh, they're different, but I like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And honestly, that to me, that's a win.
Yeah.
Anything that gets more people in the club.
As a Trekkie, particularly at the time, I was still pretty hardcore Trekkie.
Yeah.
I can't say that as much now, but anyway, we'll come into that later. I came out of it going, I really enjoyed that. It was an action movie it was funny. I really liked the cast, but that was not Star Trek. And the main reason was I complained about all the things like they hinted that the Enterprise was now hydroelectric, and they tried to make it like a normal power station now, where you got the antimatter, then you got to boil water, and you got turbines and things. They seem to imply that, and I'm just like, that's just stupid. And then in the second one, they did then they did the warp transporters, and I'm just like,
the transwarp beaming. I was like, guys.
And then beam to the Klingon Empire in the second one. I'm just like,
my headcanon for those movies is that the Kelvin movies are movies about the original series cast that people see in the 25th century. Like, that's why you
Mhm.
got Spock there. Like, they did the thing where like, oh, we got the actual guy. And so that's how I view them. I view them as like movies about, because, you know, if you see a movie based on a true story, like there's that movie Argo by Ben
Oh,
Affleck,
yeah.
a great movie.
Mhm.
The end bit where they're running through the airport and the Iranian military chasing them didn't happen. They just got in the airport, you know, got on the planes, effed off, and we're fine.
So you think the Abrams movies are like what do they call it when it's a version of reality, but it's not quite?
Yeah, like a heightened reality, augmented
Yeah.
reality, kind of based on a true story, hollow
Based on a
novel.
true story, but some of these events might not have happened.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Okay.
Inspired by true events.
Inspired. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good way of putting stuff. Inspired by Star Trek. That's a good way of putting it.
Oh, Sarah, the Beastie Boys, though. I look, the one
I love that.
in,
It was a bit alike.
Beyond, when the raw hits and they all start exploding, I'll be honest, I was like, yay, in the theater.
Yeah, no, that was and I just like how it goes, good song.
Yeah.
I like this song. It's like, no, that's good. I really liked the first one, and I thought the way they did it was beautiful, particularly the way they saw him as a kid, and we see it emerge. And obviously, there's the whole thing with him traveling in time through a black hole, and I did have to sort of go, yeah, that's not how black holes work, even a bit. Sort of thing. So I did. You could have asked anybody, is this how black holes work? And they would have gone, no. But because one, it's not a flipping hole that you can move through. But anyway.
Well, I have bad news. If you go around the sun real fast, you also don't go back in time. Like, this is all
No,
pretend.
you can't go back in time. You could go forwards in time if you go fast. Well, you do technically go forwards in time if you go fast enough. But
Yeah, I'm time traveling the slow way.
yeah. Well, if you jump on a plane, you time travel, but it's like 0.00001.
Oh, one of my favorite things to talk about is how if we really could go light speed, you would arrive, or faster than light speed, you could look to like where you're going and you'd already be there.
The Picard maneuver.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how if you actually traveled at the speed of light for a year, or near the speed of light for a year, and came back, the Earth would be 50 years on, or more than that. Actually, I think it might be 150 years. And I'm just like, yeah, space travel's gonna suck.
Yeah.
But
There's a new thing I heard where there's some guy who won a Nobel Prize in 2011 for like proving the model of the universe. Just won another Nobel Prize for being like, oh, actually got it all wrong. Completely different. Time is just a function. I can't even explain it well enough, but it's like time isn't exactly real, which, you know.
like, I'd love that. I'd love to do that. I've got a theory. I've won £1 million. A few years later, nah, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Have another £1 million, please. Yes, you can. Oh,
you were so honest about it. Here's another $1 million.
A few years later, oh, we got it right first time. Another £1 million, please. I can't do that at work.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.